This episode was graciously supported by Adonis Fertility International. They are a lovely organization based in Eastern Europe and offering medical tourism, but they also have an office in the US because they want to be close to their patients and they want to be close to the people that they serve. They are so thoughtful and supportive. And I know that because I know their egg donation program and know how thoughtful they are and caring with their egg donors. They do such a great job at screening and educating the egg donors and also hold their patients' hands through the process. They really support everyone along the way in the best way possible. So check them out, Adonis Fertility International. I think you'll be happy you did. Have you been confused about all the news about surrogacy and donor conception? I could completely understand that because there's so much misinformation out there. But today's guests will clear it all up for you because I've got a winning team on this podcast today. You're going to meet 4 people who make a beautiful team, and they are going through a gorgeous surrogacy process that you will not believe. So check it out. I think you will be amazed to hear their story. Welcome to Building Your Family. This is a podcast about donor conception, surrogacy, and all the ways the modern family is built. I'm your host. My name is Lisa Schumann. I'm an author, a researcher, and I am the host of this podcast and so excited for tonight because tonight you are going to meet some fantastic people. So the first couple that you're going to meet, you've met one already. You've met Lauren in a previous episode. Lauren Brown is a fantastic person who was interviewed some time ago about her journey. And she and her wife, Amanda, had children together and they talked all about it. So you'll have to check out that episode. But tonight, you're going to also meet her intended parents, Stephen and Matthew, because Stephen and Matthew were matched with Lauren for their gestational carrier journey. So I'm not going to give you any more details. I'm going to let them tell you all about it. Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi, Lisa. So good to be here.
I was going to say the same thing. So happy to be here.
I really feel like a fairy godmother getting you guys all together, and I'm so excited about it. And I can't wait to share with the audience all this wonderful news. So, Matthew and Stephen, why don't you tell us a little bit about you? Let's start at the beginning. Maybe you can introduce yourselves and let us know how you met and how you started on your family building journey.
Yeah, of course. So Matthew and I met in New York City in 2017 on a dating app. I think it was Tinder.
Yep.
And we met in an East Village bar, and he walked in, and I was like, "Who's this guy?" And it was sort of a whirlwind romance. It was pretty crazy. At the time, I had accepted a job in California that was starting about 4 months from when we met. And so I told him pretty early, like first or second date, like, "Hey, just so you know, I'm leaving in like 3 or 4 months." And we both had this idea like, "Oh, okay, well, we seem to like each other. So let's just have a nice summer and we'll take it from there." And then one thing led to another, and I ended up moving, and then we were long distance. We just couldn't say goodbye.
Oh.
And we were long distance for, I think, eight months or so. And Matt got a job out in California, and then we ended up moving in together. So
wow.
In like gay male terms, that's like incredibly fast, right? Like from like first date to living together within a year, basically, including a lot of that was long distance. But we just really fell so quickly for each other.
Yeah, every step of our relationship has been, kind of lockstep. Like there's no like conversation where someone brings something up and then the other person's like, whoa, not ready for that, which I think is why we're here now. Luckily, we just got married in 2022 and we finished our honeymoon, which was a beautiful 3 weeks away of not working, and got back to the city and we're like, let's just start researching babies and figure out, what that journey looks like and start doing research and see what we want to do.
Yeah, I think that was a big part of why we wanted to get married, was to start a family. It's like, you could live a whole life together without a piece of paper that the government tells you you're married. But for us, it was really important to do that, to start the process of building a family. From a very young age, I always pictured myself like as a father. And even in like high school, I would teach like kindergarten at the Hebrew school, basically like young kids. And I love like tutoring and mentoring.
Nice.
And I used to tutor, elementary school kids at like the Boys and Girls Club. And just like absolutely love children and being around kids. And so kind of always knew I wanted a family. And I'm not, and maybe Matt wasn't quite as.
No, I mean, I very much like as a gay man was like, oh, that's not in the cards for so long. Like it wasn't even a thought that I had for a very long time. And so marriage even as well.
Lauren, tell us a little bit about how this came about. And maybe Amanda, you can share with us also a little bit about how your experiences unfolded.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Lisa, for having us. This is such a pleasure to also be here with you again. We adore you. We've known you for years.
So happy to be here.
Yes. And also with Matt and Stephen, this is just so fun. I have wanted to be a surrogate for years. I'll actually share with you when I was very little, I always wanted to be pregnant. I always wanted to have kids, like not at that time, but it was something I was looking forward to later in life. When I was 9 years old, I had this dream that I was pregnant and it was so real. Like I could feel the baby moving in my belly and I've just never forgotten that dream, It's something that like I knew that I wanted to be a mom. I knew I wanted to carry kids, which is very convenient to be married to somebody who did not want to carry babies.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Also to be at this place where I had just thought about surrogacy a lot and I had wanted to do it. And we're kind of taking a break in our own family building journey. And I didn't want to be too old to be a surrogate. We decided that right now is the perfect time for me to explore this journey. And I had first mentioned it to Amanda a couple years back. And it was new information. It was something that like she probably never thought about. And
yeah, no, it was definitely something I was hearing for the first time. Like the desire of hearing Lauren wanting to give back. Obviously, we use donor sperm, and we can't even begin to express how thankful we are for our donor, who gave us two beautiful children. But to continue to want to give back within our community, who happened to be to Matt and Stephen, that desire was very familiar. It's one of the reasons why I fell in love with Lauren. And so I think hearing that information for the first time, it was just something that I sat with and I let it sink in, and honestly came back to Lauren and it was just like, let's do this. Let's make your dream come true.
That's amazing.
Because it became our dream at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And so did you have any concerns, Amanda? Did you have any worries? Because, Lauren had really felt so strongly about doing this. You guys had been through a lot with, you went through reciprocal IVF when it was kind of like this new thing for you. And you had these two gorgeous kids. And now, like, rather than everything being quiet, Lauren saying, let's ramp it up. Let's add a little more
to the chaos.
Yes, let's have a little more spice here.
Yeah. You know what? I think that we're very familiar with the IVF process. We say that we're nurses at this point, right? So going through IVF again was not scary. It's something that we're very comfortable with. And the surrogate part on top of that, at that point, not knowing who the intended parents would be in that process and where I would fit in with that was just an unknown, but definitely open and was excited to kind of figure that out along the way.
It's wonderful. That's great. Okay. So Matt and Stephen, did you guys start talking soon after you met about having kids, or was that something that started coming up later?
We first had like conversations about it maybe after the first year of being together.
Yeah, I don't know if this is true, but in my head, we did this long road trip from Denver to SF once, where we like went all through Utah. And in my head, I feel like we had a lot of like time in the car together, and we had all these conversations about who we were and who we wanted to be individually and together. And I can't really pinpoint the first time it came up, like, oh, let's build a family, let's have kids, or how we're going to do this. But I think in my mind, it kind of stems from that journey of like kind of getting to know each other even deeper through a road trip, which is go on road trips, people.
Yeah, right. Lots of time to talk.
Yeah. Listen to some podcasts.
Right. Listen to the podcast. So you guys said, okay, we want to have get married. We want to have kids. Did you find a fertility clinic? or how did the process start for you?
There's a lot of ways to build a family. And, we looked at adoption and we looked at surrogacy. And I ultimately got very lucky because the company I work at offers really good insurance for, embryo creation and then for surrogacy as well. It was through Progeny. And Matthew worked for a company who offered Carrot. Those are I think the two main insurance companies for surrogacy. And so through those two companies and through our jobs, we were able to get coverage that kind of made it make sense financially. Because for any couple that's thinking about this, you can find this everywhere on the internet. It essentially starts at $200,000, right? It's really a lot to create the embryos, to store everything, and then to go on the surrogacy journey. And so that really unlocked it for us. Made it make sense from a financial perspective, which is such a bummer that it's such an important consideration for everyone who's considering this, but it's the reality.
Yes. Yeah, unfortunately, it's still, the way rules are set up are still primarily discriminatory in a way, because if you can't get pregnant at home, you should have a benefit, right? So sadly, it's not available for everyone, but it's great that it is available for some people and things are changing. So you said, okay, we're going to jump into it. We got a fertility clinic. And then how did you find your donor?
The first thing we found was our surrogacy agent. I kind of was on Instagram and I got an ad for a surrogacy agency. And I was like, that's weird. Turning,
you're married. We know what's next.
They figured me out. So I was surprised to see that, but I was like, okay, lean in. So I reached out to one surrogacy agency, had a conversation with them, had maybe a couple others, but then we got really lucky. So I'm a lawyer and I worked at a court with Brownstone Surrogacy's founder, Jarrett Zafran. And I saw one day he posted online I'm leaving Big Law to go start a surrogacy agency. And I was like, well, that's a wild pivot. Very excited for him. And I was like, make a note of this, Stephen, because maybe one day this will be useful to you. And in fact, it was. So when we really started, we reached out to Jarrett pretty early on. He was just such a wealth of information and is such a smart, awesome dude. He's been on this podcast with you, Lisa. That's really where it started. And then, you kind of look, okay, so we have our surrogacy agent. Now we have to get a fertility clinic. Okay, who's in scope? Who's in network for our insurance? And then of those, it's kind of, how do you decide? We talked to a few different places. We got some good vibes, some less good vibes. Some doctors were late to meetings. We were like, well, maybe not them. Others were more explained more to us. And we like that more. But it's really hard to pick. You feel like it's a bit arbitrary. It's hard to decide what factors matter.
And some of them just take such a medical perspective and approach where you feel like a patient from the get-go, where there's tons of medical first information and that's it. And Spring, our doctor, was just super warm and was open to talking about the process beyond just physically and the science behind what will go on, and a bit more of a holistic approach, I guess. Which kind of excited and interested us compared to some of the other places we spoke with.
And then it was through Spring that we went, found our egg donation center. And then that's a whole nother process, right? You have to, it's such an interesting place where you're looking through profiles, trying to understand what matters to you. How are you going to decide? And then who's available, right? You find a lot of great profiles and you reach out and they're like, well, actually that donor is not interested anymore, or they decided not to cycle this time, or whatever it is. So then there's a lot of you get your hopes up and you get disappointed, and then you get them up again, and then you just keep hoping. And then eventually we found a donor we really liked, and it worked out. We were able to connect with her and make our embryos.
What do you like about her?
What we really liked her responses to the questions that were asked in the bio. So questions about her childhood and how it was, and she really seemed to represent a very creative, happy, thoughtful, full, rich childhood. And that's what I think we really cared about. It wasn't just SAT scores and colleges, although she went to some pretty good schools, but it was really more about was she a happy person, right? Did she exude the kind of energy and contentment that we would want in our daughter or son?
Yeah. And I mean, kind of mirroring qualities that we love in each other, of course. She loved soccer, and that was a sport I play and love. And when looking through a lot of the responses to why the donor is doing and going through this process, because it's obviously not an easy process and is not as simple and enjoyable as male donation.
Yes.
Reading through the responses to that question specifically, we really appreciated that our donor understood kind of queer family building and was excited to help a queer couple on their journey. And so that was really, I think, the number one. And then everything else was really nice to have.
I'll add one more thing, which is she's also gay, which was important to us because we really wanted our gay family to be built by gay people wherever we could find them, which is another, we were so excited to meet Lauren and Amanda too for that reason, is because it's so amazing to be supported by and to seek the help from other members of the community in that way.
That's wonderful. That's really great. What is the situation as it stands now with your donor? Is she someone that you can contact at some point or that you can get medical information from?
The donation agency we went through is typically closed, I think. It's typically anonymous. But before we proceeded with her, we reached out to the director of the agency and we were able to get on the phone with the donor in an anonymous way without exchanging information and get a sort of assurance that she was open to contact down the line.
Great.
So we don't really have any information on her, but we were able to get assurances that, like, if our future child ever has questions that could be answered by the donor, including medical questions or just identity questions about who she is and what's going on, if that curiosity arises, that we have an outlet for it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was such a hard question to ask because you're like, hey, in 5 to 15 years or so,
or never,
maybe we'll never need to, but
like you didn't want to be intrusive, but you also still needed to get
we didn't want to scare her off.
Right.
Yeah.
But you still needed to be able to have some assurance because there's no such thing as anonymity and it's not really possible. And, most children are curious about something, whether it's for medical or social reasons. They're very often curious about where they came from or, all sorts of things. So I think that was great that you guys were able to work that through your contract.
I wish it were more open by default. I wish the default was you should expect communication from future potential offspring that you're donating to create. Mm-hmm. But it might not happen if they're not interested. Like that, the line should be open, and then it should be up to in my mind, it should be up to the donor conceived person to decide, is this an avenue I want to walk down, or am I fully satisfied and do I feel complete without it? And I think that optionality is really important.
Very important. Yes, I totally agree.
And I know that's something you advocate for too. Yes.
And we're there. I mean, we're almost there. I mean, we're moving in that direction. And there are more and more agencies that are fully open and more even egg freezing programs that are fully open. So we are moving in that direction. And it's great that you guys were able to negotiate that because it is so important. And it's hard to imagine now because, now you're just in this process of the pregnancy piece. And so it's hard to kind of fast forward 15 years from now and say, how's my child going to feel, or 10 years from now? But it's so important because you can't unwind these decisions later. So you guys decided, okay, we have our donor, and obviously you want someone who's healthy and all of that and makes a lot of eggs. Were you thinking you'd like 2 kids or 3 children? Were you thinking about that?
Because of this process, weirdly had to start thinking about that before. Like, obviously, a lot of heterosexual couples are blessed with the, oops, do we even want this one problem, as opposed to having to plan it from the get-go. But starting the process, doing the process, having the resources we had access to, it made sense to make a higher number of embryos. And so we do have 6 additional embryos to use in the future and have now started kind of already planning, wouldn't it be nice? Like, what if we had a second? But I think 2 is the limit most likely for us. I grew up as an only child and feel blessed in many ways to have that experience, obviously having nothing to compare it to, but in many ways it was really lovely. And I have a really close bond with my parents, I think large in part due to that. Being married to Stephen and being with him, I've gotten to see how close he is with his brother, who's about a year and a half or so apart.
Nice.
and seeing what a special bond they have.
But you probably said, okay, we're going to make embryos with both of our genetics just in case we want baby number 2.
Not with both of our genetics, though. Just Stephen's, yeah. We had lots of conversations about if we should do both and one then the other. The more and more I thought about it, genetic relation just wasn't important to myself. And I think instead, the idea being if they're related, if we have a second, I personally would enjoy having the children related via Stephen.
So you want them to be full genetic siblings?
Yes.
That was important to you.
Exactly.
And it's been cool to see Lauren and Amanda's children who are similarly like related to each other.
Yeah. And everyone has a different story of what's right for them.
We're just following in Lauren and Amanda's footsteps.
Truly.
That's how we'll also approach this.
Oh, that's how you handle that. That's how you prevent the tantrum. Okay.
That's right. Okay. That's right. That's right.
We've gotten to spend a lot of time together. And one thing that has been so special, our kids love, I call Matt and Stephen the 2 dads. You know, I say the 2 dads are coming and they're like, when are the 2 dads coming? You know, they love Matt and Stephen. They're going to be amazing parents, just like watching them with Judah and Malachi. It's just it's such a blessing, you know, without derailing this part of the conversation.
Yeah. Yes.
That has been a really big blessing for us to be able to just kind of mesh families and kind of become an extended family of sorts.
Yeah, they have seamlessly fit into our family.
That's so nice.
We can't wait for you to be aunties to our baby, you know?
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh. Very sweet. Well, you're obviously a great match, but I was just going to say that I think it's so important for everybody out there to hear this, because I've done research in this area, and research really shows, at least in the decade that I was doing research on same-sex male couples going through surrogacy, most use both of their genetics, but not everyone. And in lots and lots of same-sex female families, it's the opposite, where they just use one. For whatever reason, that's where the numbers fall out. But I think it's important for everybody to kind of say, whatever your family looks like, is that right for the 2 of you, right? What sort of donor that you're going to choose, what kind of relationship you're going to have, if you're going to use both of your genetics, if you're going to use one, if you're going to adopt or use surrogacy. It's so important for everyone to feel fully free to make whatever decision's right for them and their family. And I think that's so important for everyone. I know it's hard in this day and age. Everyone kind of feels very confined because of politics, because of culture, because of finances. But I think it's really important that people feel empowered to build the families that are right for them. So it's really wonderful to hear that you guys have all kind of chosen a path that's right for you. And now you have this path together, which is so great. So tell me a little bit about that, Matt and Stephen. So you said, okay, we're making embryos, baby number 1's happening, maybe 2, and now we're going to be matched with our surrogate.
This was crazy because we were told the surrogacy match process could take, a year plus. We were like 9 months. They were like, that would be amazing. 9 months to match would be incredible. And we had our embryos confirmed by the fertility clinic on a Tuesday. And Jarrett messaged us on a Thursday, that Thursday being like, I think I have a match for you. Wow. The stars just aligned so luckily for us. I mean, I will say our embryo creation process took longer than expected. So our total time from like really engaging this process to having the child will be around 2 years. But that's still, I think, exceptionally fast for this process. And a lot of folks take 3 years or longer to get there. And so we were Brownstone Surrogacy. Shout out to them. And shout out to you, Lisa, because Jarrett was on your podcast. And then Lauren was on your podcast. And you helped connect them. You were the connective tissue, our fairy godmother.
Yes.
And it was because of that match that you made that we were matched with our dream surrogate and family. And so we were just so thrilled. And I think it was such a quick and obvious match for both of us. Like we got their profile and we were just like, can we say yes immediately? Like, what do we have to, like, how do we, like, this is everything, every answer to every question was like exactly what we wanted to see, basically what we were looking for. And
fantastic.
So, they put you in this meeting they're like, okay, we're going to have this meeting with the intended parents and the surrogate. We'll see how it goes, and maybe we'll have to intervene. And our agency said nothing. We just talked the whole time, basically, for an hour.
Oh, wow.
And then afterward, they're like, okay, are you willing to confirm? And I think we were both like, yes, it is like so fast, responding so fast. So it just, the stars really aligned for us on the matching process. And I know how lucky we are for that, because I know a lot of couples struggle and it takes a lot longer to get there.
Well, that's beautiful. That's so wonderful. My name is Lisa Schumann. I'm a therapist, a researcher, an author, and I am passionate about helping people find a better journey to parenthood. I created the Center for Family Building to help people understand how to make decisions, not just for the short term, but for a lifetime. We have group counseling, individual counseling, couples counseling, and lots of other services that can help people find the answers that they're looking for. Just take a look at our website so you can see a few of the thousands of people we helped build a better path to parenthood. The decisions you make are too important to leave up to chance. Arm yourself with the right information. Take a look at our website and sign up for a session with one of our therapists, join one of our groups, or access one of our programs, and you will quickly see why our strategies are so effective. Now back to our episode. So you guys met, you said, okay, that's it. We're going to move forward, sign our surrogacy contracts, and let's start going. And then did you guys meet, or did you meet at the transfer? How did that first meeting go?
It was after Christmas time. It was almost the new year.
Yeah.
And Matthew and Stephen were traveling over the holidays, visiting family on the East Coast. I don't know how it was brought up, but maybe we said something like, you all should come. I mean, it was a big ask because it's not like they were in like the DC metro area, which is where we live. Like they were still a flight away. But nonetheless, they said, yeah, we're gonna come. And so we had not even signed contracts, but we had been matched. I think we were in the middle of contracts or something. But anyways, it was so fun. So Matthew and Stephen came over. We ordered pizza. We had a bottle of wine. They were playing with the kids. It felt, I mean, you guys can share too, but for us, it felt like family. I had this thought, like a moment before you guys arrived, and I was like, what if it's awkward? Like, what if we're like so much already in this and like it doesn't flow? And that was like in my head and out my head, because
like a first date.
Because it's so comfortable.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Totally like a first date. Yeah.
It was like almost like an arranged marriage where you're like, we're doing this really intense thing. I'm already so obsessed with you in a weird way. And that like feels too deep for how long I've known you, but like it's there and it's real. Sometimes the arranged marriages are great.
Yeah. Sometimes
the sentiment is shared. We agree.
Especially early on in the stages, like picked and choose when and what to share with certain people. And a few times when we shared that we were like going to go meet our surrogate and her family before everything was said and done, I've definitely got some mixed reactions of like, what are you doing? Like, that feels crazy. It was like, it just felt right. And it was starting things on a great foot. And it's continued to be such special and easy time so far.
That's fantastic. Were you together for the transfer?
Yes. So we met, I think, we first met in the DC area for one night only, dinner. Mm-hmm. And then once we got the contract signed and the transfer date scheduled, then we all flew to New York City, which is where our fertility clinic is, because that's where we started the process. So we all met in New York for the transfer, and we were there for a few days. And that was just another really meaningful and amazing and beautiful week together, just like with the kids and everyone and exploring New York City. And the transfer itself went perfect. I think one of the doctors said that textbook at the end. He's like, oh, that was textbook, which made me really happy. So we just got, again, very lucky. I know a lot of things can go a lot of different ways. And so we were very just thrilled with seeing Lauren again and Amanda again for the transfer. Yeah.
So you were in the room for the transfer?
Yes.
Wow. I often tell intended parents that it's so nice if you can attend the transfer, even though it's not, you see this little bubble. It really almost feels like it's the first spark of life, right? It feels like it's just starting to happen. So it's such an exciting moment. I'm so glad you all were able to share that together.
Yeah, we're really trying to prioritize being there for important moments where we can throughout the pregnancy. One of the hardest things for us is that we're on opposite coasts. So if Lauren has an ultrasound at 8 a.m. and we want to be there for it, we've got to wake up at 5 a.m., for the FaceTime. Or we were just there this weekend to be there in person for an important ultrasound for us, where we got to see the heartbeat for the first time. Well, the second time. It was supposed to be the first time, but our baby was precocious and exhibited a heartbeat earlier as well.
So that's the news. We're 7 weeks pregnant.
Congratulations. That's so exciting. Well, I think this is a very good example of why it's so important to choose a good surrogate for your journey. I think that very often people get into this and they don't know, just like you're thinking about fertility clinics, it's hard to know, what do I ask for? How do I, say to my agency, this is really what I'm looking for? And so very often people reflexively will say, well, I'd like somebody who's in my town or whatever. And if the perfect person existed in your town, that would be fine. But it's far more important to find a person who you can really connect with. And for the four of you to be a team is really like the icing on the cake for all four of you to be so, close. And that's irreplaceable. It's certainly so worth being a coast away from each other, even though it's far. It's so much better than someone who's close by who may not be so well suited for you.
Yeah, I think we're even like surprising Brownstone. Like the first visit, we kind of told them after the fact. It's like, oh yeah, we just had dinner with them. And they're like, you what? Okay, wow. Just how good a match they made and how lucky we feel. So
that's wonderful. So you're deciding that you're going to try to be there either by video or by in person for some of these big appointments. And then what about the delivery? Have you guys all decided on your delivery plans? And if so, what are your thoughts?
This is like the really beautiful intersection between like my body, your baby, right? Because the delivery plans have everything to do with the baby and everything to do with my body. We have established care at a birthing center up here, which is where I birthed our two children, and we know them, we love them, we feel very at home there. And so the plan is, as long as it's a low risk birth and everything is looking lovely, the plan is to have the baby at the birthing center. My last kiddo was born at home. And so I was joking with Matthew and Stephen a few days ago. I was like, the goal is not to have this baby born at home, but hopefully we'll make it to the birthing center.
So how do you guys feel about this process and Lauren's plans? And what are your plans regarding the delivery?
Our number one priority is just making sure like Lauren and Amanda are as like comfortable as possible for the birth so that everything goes perfectly. And we know like Lauren's used this birthing center before for her own children. And so we have all the confidence in the world that it's going to be, perfect for us too, so long as everything stays low risk and everything's good to go. So I think our plan is really to try to get out there to the DC metro area a few weeks before the due date and probably, get an Airbnb, some sort of short-term rental. And so we can be there so that we can kind of have some assurances that we'll be present for the moment. And then we hope to stay a little bit after to sort of just linger and be there and be present and enjoy the moment. And then we'll probably go from there to see some family up on the East Coast.
The soon-to-be great-grandmother, yeah.
Soon-to-be great-grandma's up in northern Maine, and my grandma is down in Florida. So we're going to try to get some meet and greets early. Before we kind of land in California and start our lives together as a family here.
Wow, that's so exciting. And what about the delivery? Are you guys planning to participate in the delivery or be there, or what are your thoughts about that?
Be there. Yeah. I'm not sure how to participate per se. Yeah, we'll have to have that conversation, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, they're most welcome to be in the room. I've got this thing. Amanda is my birthing partner.
Oh.
And I need to be like
in the zone.
I need to be like by myself with Amanda while I'm laboring. Once I've transitioned and once I'm pushing, anybody can be there. I'm probably not going to notice.
Absolutely.
Right.
You guys have to get ready to catch.
Ready,
Wow.
ready and willing.
Can't wait.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is like a really incredible story because, now you have Amanda helping out and, it's like a bonus. It's incredible.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't do it without her.
Yeah, I want to shout out Amanda too, because it's like Lauren is the surrogate for sure, but Amanda has been just so supportive and so thoughtful and such a part of this journey with all of us. And it's just been amazing to be welcomed into the family by both of them. And, it's incredible, really.
Oh, so sweet.
Thanks, Stephen.
That's so great. And are you guys planning on doing, having some skin to skin contact with the baby right away after the delivery?
So.
Yeah. As much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
You're asking all the right questions, but for us, it feels very close, but also very far away. There's a lot of steps between here and there. And like throughout this process, you have to look ahead, but I think you have to also focus on like where you are and what the next step looks like and what you can do to make sure that step is going the way that you want it to. There's just so much information out there, and we've bought all these baby books, and now we're like starting to read all of these, getting into that zone. And there's just so much to ingest. And I think a way to beat the anxiety of the future there is to really focus on the present and think about like, how are we doing today? What's our next step? And take it one step at a time. Because especially if you're just starting this journey, it does feel so huge, a huge mountain to climb, right? There's so many steps, so many folks to engage with, lawyers and psychologists and agents and matches and donors and insurance agents and your family and your partner and there's so much to navigate. It can feel overwhelming, and really it's just what's the first step? What's the next step? Try to keep your vision a little, in my mind, this is how I cope, keep my vision a little short so I can just focus on what's in front of us and not get too overwhelmed with the future.
And Lauren and Amanda, where are you? Are your kids, do they know what's going on? Have you talked to them about it yet? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were talking about it with them before it even happened. And so just for those of you listening, we have a 3-year-old and a 17-month-old. And so the 17-month-old can't kind of like grasp these things, but our 3-year-old definitely can and does. Our kids are learning where babies come from, and that you need 3 things. You need a sperm and an egg and a uterus. And they know about the egg that made them. They know about the sperm that made them, and they know about the uterus that made them. We have a lot of family members who are not biologically related to us. So their concept of family is so open. Open. And so leading up to this process, we would have conversations with the kids about, what do you think if there are 2 dads and they already have their egg and they have their sperm? What do you think if they used mommy's uterus? And they loved that idea. They thought it was so cool. What if mommy grows a baby for the 2 dads? That's so cool. And so, we talk about it all the time. We talked about it when we went to New York. The kids were there. As we said, we talked about what was happening when I was leaving to go to have the transfer. I think it was the only time that I left the kids. And so, of course, I'm explaining I'm going to go, and the doctor is going to, because, they know they've seen pictures and all about the doctors that made them. And, and so they knew that the doctor was going to put the 2 dads' embryo in mommy's uterus. And then when I got back, I showed them pictures and video from that. And they're so cute. They're like excited. Very invested. Like our oldest will sometimes say things like, "Oh no," like we'll push the little one off of me and say, "No, the embryo is growing there," And it's just so funny to watch how their minds are processing what's happening.
And what was so funny, it was probably about 5 minutes into our drive to New York for the embryo transfer, and our 3-year-old was like, "I don't recognize this road. We're going the wrong way, but we have to go to New York."
He was freaking out. He thought we were going home. He was like, "No, this is the way you go home. We're going to New York to get the 2 dads' embryo and mommy's uterus." Like,
that's fantastic.
So like, we promise we're going the right way.
Ally.
That is fantastic. That is priceless. Well, you guys should be taking notes along the way and about all these things, because you want to be able to share these great stories with the baby. These are fantastic.
Yeah.
That's
True.
great.
I should write that in.
That's
Baby
great.
book.
That's great.
Yeah, we got a journal from a friend of ours that we're going to start keeping all of our little memories in so that we can give it to our child.
Well, you'll have to take a look at mine. I'll have to send you my
The
journal.
life.
Oh, I'd love
Yes,
that.
my life book.
The
Yes,
life book. Yes.
I will send it to you. I'll send it to you for sure. And how do you guys all feel about talking about this process with other people, like friends, family, and then maybe even beyond that, like social media or, extended family? How are you guys managing all of that?
In a different world, we'd probably share less. But in this world, I feel like these stories still need to be told. And there are a lot of people who are starting this journey or curious about this journey. And when we were starting it, we didn't find like an overwhelming amount of information. There's a few stories out there. There's a lot of people who are sharing, but we think it's really important, and it's one of the reasons we're so impressed with Lauren and Amanda and their ability to build community online around queer family building and to be visible and to stand out as an example of a way to do this. And in their case, a way to do it really beautifully. And so I think it's really important to try to be open and try to share in the hopes that others will find something in your story that resonates with them, helps them on their journey. Just like we were helped on our journey with the accounts and the people we encountered. So.
All of us in the community, I feel like representation is everything. It's so important.
Absolutely.
To be able to see somebody, sometimes I think about if I could see somebody living the life that we're living now when I was much younger, how inspiring that would have been, and kind of how much maybe pain or hardship that I would have avoided just knowing that my dream could be true. But circling back to your question, I will say that sharing on social media is probably the easiest. But right when you're on social media, you get to dictate what you say, how you say it. And we have a small public profile that initially in going through, I'll just share this too, in the matching process, one thing that I had said in my profile is that I would really like to share this on my social media, but it doesn't have to be attached at all to the intended parents. And this is quite common for surrogates to share their surrogacy journey. And when we were matching with Matt and Steven, they were like, yeah, we would totally be open to sharing the story with you. And so that has been a really kind of fun joining of forces and kind of sharing, like, from our end, what surrogacy looks like, and then from their end, what being an intended parent is about, without speaking for you guys. So I have enjoyed kind of sharing our bit of the surrogacy piece on social media, beside, going out to friends and family. I honestly think that there's a lot of misunderstanding around surrogacy, and people don't really know what questions to ask. People don't know what questions that they can ask, to have some family and friends who don't ask at all about the pregnancy or what's going on because it's not my baby. That feels kind of interesting, right? Because this is something that is such a huge part of our day-to-day in our life right now,
Absolutely.
and about like our intended connection for the future. And yeah, and I don't mean also to say that all of those relationships have been thwarted. I have so many friends and family who are very interested and who are very excited and who are super supportive. But again, maybe just don't know the questions to ask.
Yeah, it's been interesting sharing this news. I mean, we're sharing so much of the early process. Has been really interesting to see reactions to from different groups of people. And, obviously most heterosexual couples don't share their conception stories with their parents. And it's more,
we share the transfer
more down
video.
the line.
Yeah.
And so you see some tendencies to maybe not want to get too excited because they're aware of how many pregnancies may not go well in the first 10 weeks.
But for us, the first 10 weeks were over a year ago. We've been in this process for a year and a half already, and there's more to come. So I think that's also part of it. It's like, this isn't the beginning of our surrogacy story. It's the culmination of all the work that we've done. Both sides here have done to get to this point. And so it feels like a celebration just to be here. We feel like it's worth sharing. It's worth celebrating.
Mm-hmm. And it's been so heartwarming how much love this child is going to get, and seeing how many people are already in their corner is so special. Like, people I hadn't assumed would care, coming out and saying, "Oh my gosh, like, so happy for you guys." And
really,
and people that I didn't expect to be interested in potentially having kids of their own have reached out and asked about the process, and have shown curiosity into surrogacy, and how we felt the journey's gone so far. So it's cool to see some of that actually in action, in terms of what we were talking about earlier with representation.
That's fantastic. So you guys feel really open equally about being able to share with friends, family, and everything's on social media. So you can just kind of refer back to it and say, if you want updates, just find me on Instagram. You don't have to, get into the whole story 1,000 times. It's almost easier, I guess, in some ways to be able to do that. But it's great that you guys are all of the same mind. And that's not always easy to get 4 people on the same page about anything. Nonetheless, something that's so complicated, right?
Yeah.
Well, I really, really appreciate all of this. I think it's all so useful and so inspiring for people to see, and to see how beautiful this relationship can be, and how people can start to develop a bond in this arranged marriage, as you said, and be able to kind of, do the most beautiful thing together, which is create a baby. So I'm really glad that you guys shared that with us tonight. Is there anything else before we wind down you feel like the audience should know?
What you just said is so important, because for us in the LGBT community, we're infertile by design, so we need community to create family. And that concept, that idea of chosen family is so, prevalent and powerful in the queer community. So it's really important, I think, that for us that we were able to create our family in this way, and like through community. I just think that's really powerful.
Yes. 100%. And hopefully at some point, none of this will be a mystery to people, right? It will just be your average everyday. This is the way that you have a baby, and this will be the world that we live in. And you guys being here tonight are helping us move the needle in that direction. So I really appreciate it.
That's so sweet.
Thanks, Lisa. That's true.
It really is. It's wonderful and so important, particularly in this day and age, for everyone to be able to have a voice and to put it out there, because there are too many voices on the other side that are drowning out some of these beautiful stories. So I'm really grateful to have this out here and for everybody to hear your gorgeous story. And I hope that you'll keep sharing. And, I can't wait to see the baby pictures, because of course that's the best part. So yes.
Sending them to you.
Yeah. So where can everyone reach you or find your stories on social media? Would you mind sharing your handles with us tonight?
2 kind dads.
Kind dads, yeah.
And that couldn't be truer.
No.
It's a play on the last name, but it's the sweetest. It's so true. And we're at the 2 Mom Browns, the 2 Mom _ Browns is where you can find us.
Great. Well, thanks so much. And thank you to the fur baby for behaving through all of this. I know it's not easy. I know you've had to kind of keep him comfortable and all of that through all this. So thank him also. Well, he's going to have to learn how to share very soon. So, yes. So thanks so much, guys. And I look forward to hearing updates over the time. And thank you, everyone out there, for sharing with us your time and energy. If you like this episode, please subscribe, because that's how we keep going. You could visit us at familybuilding.net, and certainly visit Matt and Stephen and Lauren and Amanda at their handles as well. And I will see you next time. Hi, it's Lisa Schumann. I hope that you enjoyed that video, and I hope it helped you. And if it did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe, because that's how we keep going. It's really important to us. And if you liked it, you might like this one.